the world wasn't born frozen. In fact, it fought the cold tooth and nail for a long time. Earth was just too warm, trapped in its own breath, carbon, methane, and wild exhalations from molten crust. But then, the great tipping began. Something changed. You step into a new scene, the first ice. It's not snowflakes, not yet. Think bigger. Ice didn't start as delicate lace across your windows. It came as walls, as creeping, grinding slabs miles thick. It grew from the poles and crawled across continents like a patient monster. This is how it starts. You're floating above Rodinia, an ancient supercontinent older than your brain wants to admit. Beneath you, the earth is shifting, slow, massive rearrangements of tectonic plates. And while the land groans, the temperature begins to fall. Scientists call this moment the cryogenian period, and it earns its name. This isn't your everyday winter. This is snowball Earth. Imagine it, the entire planet entombed in ice, equator to pole, mountain to trench. Earth is a sealed globe of white. Ice sheets up to 3 kilometers thick wrap the surface like a deep space freezer. The oceans beneath, still liquid, barely. The sky above, dusty and silent. The planet should have died, but it didn't. Instead, it evolved. How is ice formed? Let's pull you back down to the basics for a second. See, ice is water slowed to stillness, each molecule linking arms, locking into a crystal grid that forgets how to move. It starts with cold, sure, but not just temperature. It's about purity, about pressure, about having the space to freeze without chaos. That's why sea ice, lake ice, and glacial ice all form differently. Some trap bubbles, some squeeze out salts, some remember the atmosphere they were born into. Ice is not just frozen water. Ice is history. Each layer carries time. Now picture this. Beneath the vast ice sheets, continents are still moving, ever so slightly. And above them, the weight of the ice pushes down with unimaginable force. Greenland sinks, Antarctica groans. This pressure is not just poetic, it's literal. Ice reshapes the crust of the earth, depresses it, rebounds it when it melts. Lakes form in the scars. Rivers rush through leftover valleys. This is the balancing act beginning. Even in its earliest form, ice is not a passive guest. It is a sculptor, a tyrant, a timer. You shift again, forward in time now. The Paleocene. Dinosaurs are gone. Mammals are waking up, trying new ideas. Fur, migration, hibernation. And so is the planet. It begins to experiment with ice again. Not all-consuming this time, but seasonal, cautious, experimental. The poles flirt with cold, glaciers toy with the mountaintops. And then, like a slow drumbeat, the ice returns, the Quaternary period begins. and with it, a rhythm that hasn't stopped. Ice ages come and go, cold times, warm times. Your world breathes like a sleeping animal, exhaling melt, inhaling frost. You kneel beside a glacier now, just one of many. You press your hand against it, not just cold, but old, and you realize something strange. This ice, it's alive in a way. Not sentient, but moving. It creeps at inches per year, dragging rock, swallowing valleys, birthing rivers, and beneath it, life, tiny microbes, archaea, bacteria frozen for millennia and still dreaming. Yes, ice has biology. Life doesn't just survive in ice. It evolves there. Scientists find extremophiles in Antarctic lakes buried beneath a mile of solid ice. Organisms that eat iron, breathe sulfur, and ignore the sun. It's not a prison, it's a vault, and sometimes a womb. Let's get personal. You're walking through a frozen cave in Iceland. The ceiling glows blue. Ice crystals scatter moonlight across your boots. Somewhere nearby, a scientist is drilling a core. Each foot they go down, they go back in time. They're not just digging for cold, they're digging for answers. What was the CO2 level 800,000 years ago? What pollen floated through that season? What ash fell from what volcano? Ice remembers everything. And so, the people who study ice, glaciologists, climatologists, cryobiologists, they're not just researchers. They're historians, time travelers, dream readers. You can't carbon date a ghost, but you can freeze one. So why does this matter? Because ice is a balance. The earth is a hot machine. The sun is a constant fire. Without ice, everything tips toward chaos. Too much heat, and you get Venus. Too little, and you get a rock. Ice is the moderator, the mirror, the shield. It reflects sunlight, regulates salinity, controls atmospheric oxygen through ancient gas traps. Without polar caps, ocean currents collapse. Without glaciers, freshwater disappears. Without permafrost, carbon burps into the air. You're not just standing in front of ice. You're standing inside Earth's thermostat. And lately, it's been broken. But not yet. You still have time. You close your eyes, breathe in the crisp air, listen to the drip drip of melt water, quiet and patient. A single drop lands on your palm. It's cold, it's clean, it's ancient, and it's waiting. You're standing in silence. A kind of silence no city has ever known. Not the hush after snowfall, not the calm before a storm, but something more ancient. It smells like mineral dust and long-forgotten breath. Above you, sheets of sky-colored ice stretch across the continent like battle armor, groaning, alive and full of tension. There's nothing gentle here. This is no quiet snowfall or romantic winter scene. This is the hammer. This is destruction forged in frozen time. You've already met the peaceful, balancing side of ice. But now, you meet its twin, the one that doesn't just sculpt, but scars. The one that doesn't just preserve, but punishes. You're about to learn how ice doesn't merely respond to the Earth's moods. It controls them. And it does so in terrible, breathtaking ways. You don't start on land. You start above it, at the edge of a stratospheric experiment, where humans tried to speak the language of gods. They failed, mostly, but not always. Let's begin there. Cloud seeding and the ice game of nations. It's 1947. The Second World War has only just released its grip on the planet. And already, new empires are battling for control, not of territory, but of weather. Scientists in the United States are dropping silver iodide into clouds like it's confetti. This is cloud seeding. And the logic is simple. Introduce a particle into a cloud system. Give water vapor something to cling to. And accelerate the formation of ice crystals. The goal? Create snow or rain on command. But this isn't just about making it rain in a desert. It's about owning the skies. About war in Vietnam. It's rumored the U.S. seeded clouds to bog down supply routes along the Ho Chi Minh Trail with artificial monsoons, Project Popeye. They called it because even weather can be militarized with enough arrogance. They tried to weaponize ice. And for a moment, they succeeded. But of course, ice doesn't follow orders. It has its own logic, one much older than geopolitics. When ice rewrites maps and memory, thousands of years ago, during the last glacial maximum, entire continents shifted under the weight of frozen oceans. You weren't alive to see it, but your ancestors were. They watched as glaciers moved like gods, grinding down mountain ranges, burying forests, and dragging boulders across bedrock like paperweights. The weight of the ice pressed the Earth's crust down. Imagine that. Ice changing the shape of the planet. Even now, parts of Scandinavia are still rebounding from the weight they once carried. Like a bruise, slowly healing. The fingerprints of that destruction are everywhere. U-shaped valleys, glacial till, erratics stranded far from home. If you've ever driven past a hill that seemed strangely smooth, or seen a rock out of place in a meadow, you've glimpsed ice's violent past. But it's not just passive destruction, it's choreography. Glaciers carve rivers. Ice sheets direct wind currents. Frozen deserts affect global heat distribution. One large iceberg carving off Antarctica can change shipping lanes, upend weather patterns, or kill thousands of seabirds. It's not dramatic. It's surgical. And then there's biology. Biology's Cold War. You'd think nothing can survive under ice. You'd be wrong. Beneath the frozen lakes of Antarctica lie ancient bacterial colonies, breathing out strange gases, feeding on minerals in complete darkness. They are relics of pre-human Earth, alive, barely, but alive. Even viruses sleep in ice, dangerous ones. In Siberia, thawing permafrost has already revealed pithovirus and mollivirus, prehistoric viruses that scientists revived in labs, because apparently no one has seen a single sci-fi movie. The ice is not a prison. It's a time capsule. And here's the worst part. What happens when that capsule melts? As permafrost thaws, it not only releases ancient microbes, but also methane, a greenhouse gas far more potent than carbon dioxide. That's right. Ice controls the air you breathe. And when it turns on you, it turns hard. When gods use ice as a weapon, let's take a step sideways into myth. The Norse knew ice as a weapon of the gods. In their cosmogony, the world began not with fire or light, but with ice. The realm of Niflheim was a place of frozen mist, and from it flowed the rivers of Elivagar, the source of all existence. Even Ragnarok, the end of days, was heralded by a terrible winter, Fimbulwinter, so cold and long that it buried the world in hopeless snow. In Hindu cosmology, the Himalayas, sacred and ice-clad, are considered the abode of gods. Ice here is not just divine, it is divinity. And of course, Christianity's hell is hot, but Dante's Inferno ends in a different place altogether. Satan trapped in a lake of ice, forever frozen at the bottom of the world. Ice isn't just a force of nature, it's a metaphor for divine silence, for cosmic punishment, for an end that comes not with a bang, but with a frostbite whisper. You may not believe in gods, but ice does a good job playing one. The brutal symphony of the Ice Age. Try to imagine what 3 kilometers of ice above your head feels like. That's what much of the Northern Hemisphere endured during the Ice Ages. If Earth was a piano, the Ice Age was when a child slammed its fists on the keys, out of sync, off tempo, but loud enough to shake the rafters. Humans almost didn't survive. Entire species went extinct. Megafauna like the woolly mammoth and saber-toothed cat vanished, not just from sight, but from memory. Only bones remain, and sometimes not even those, but we adapted. Fire, fur, storytelling, these were our weapons, and we passed through the gauntlet, wounded but wiser. Ice almost ended us, and we owe it for that. It made us clever. Without it, we might never have become fully human. Back to the present. The ice fights back. It's 2025. You're warm, you're comfortable, but the ice is listening. As humans push deeper into the Arctic, build cities near glaciers, and drill beneath permafrost, the old balance cracks. Ice doesn't fight back with noise or violence. It just melts. Quietly. Relentlessly. Greenland is bleeding. Antarctica is crumbling. The Himalayas are retreating, and your oceans, they're swelling like lungs before a scream. What's melting isn't just water, it's memory. It's balance. It's the planet's emergency brake system, and we're cutting the cord. You wanted to control the skies, but the eye, always patient, has been waiting for its turn. And now it's moving, not with vengeance, but with gravity. You're in motion again, slipping across time like frost across a window pane. But this time, you're not headed toward the past. You're veering into the experimental, into the political, into the strange space where humankind thinks it can bend the atmosphere like origami. You find yourself somewhere in the American Southwest during the late 1940s. It's dry, bone dry, but in the labs, it's raining. Not metaphorically, it's actually raining. Inside sealed domes, water is condensing and dropping from manufactured clouds. This isn't just science, it's ambition. It's an attempt to copy what nature has done for millions of years. And the tool of choice? Ice. Cloud seeding, you whisper the phrase as you step past a white-coated technician pouring silver iodide into a tray. It's one of the most peculiar things to make it rain. You seed the clouds with particles that encourage ice to form. Not rain first, ice. The tiny crystals act like magnets for water vapor. The droplets cling, freeze, fall, melt, and then hit the earth as rain. And just like that, ice becomes a political tool. Suddenly, you're standing in Vietnam, 1967. But you're not in the rice fields. You're above them, way above them, in a bomber aircraft, watching trails of chemicals drift into the clouds. The American military called it Project Popeye. The goal? To flood the Ho Chi Minh Trail, to make the monsoon last longer than nature ever intended, to trap troops, to destroy supply chains, and behind it all, behind the ambition and secrecy, ice. Ice, again, as a force of manipulation. You blink, and now you're at a United Nations climate summit. Decades later, the term has changed. No longer just cloud seeding. Now it's geoengineering. Still ice, still clouds, but bigger, broader, brasher. What if we could cool the Earth by reflecting sunlight back into space? What if we filled the sky with aerosolized particles that mimic volcanic eruptions? The goal sounds noble, reverse global warming, but the implications ripple. You walk through a simulation model in a digital research center. It shows the poles stabilizing, Greenland's glaciers slowing their melt, ocean levels calming, but in the southern hemisphere, famine, drought, unexpected hurricanes, ice, even when used for good, is never neutral. Because here's the thing about manipulating ice. You can't just aim at the clouds. The Earth is not a machine. There are no dials for justice or balance, only chaos, only chain reactions. You freeze a cloud, and a river dries. You make it snow in one place, and a desert weeps in another. You look down at your hand. It's holding a file. Declassified, marked with old ink. It's from the Cold War era, a joint proposal to create artificial glaciers in enemy territories, not to destroy, but to displace, to freeze ports, to bury roads, to weaponize weather. How do you classify such acts as destruction, as science, or as something divine? The idea that humans can use ice like a sword is not just a modern phenomenon. Myths have whispered it for centuries. Remember the frost giants from Norse mythology. They weren't just characters, they were warnings. Stories told around fires, passed down to say, don't meddle with what was never meant to be touched. But we did. And we still do. You slide into an underground vault, no windows, just refrigeration units. This is the Ice Memory Project. Deep within the Alps, scientists are preserving ancient ice cores from glaciers that are disappearing too fast. These cylinders of ice are more than just frozen water. They are clocks. They hold bubbles of atmosphere from 20,000 years ago. Each one a testimony, each one a map. They are storing them in Antarctica now, because that may be the only place cold enough to keep the past from melting. You hear one scientist whisper, when we can no longer freeze time, maybe we'll finally understand what we've done. And yet, the temptation remains. You climb into a modern plane, a high-altitude research aircraft rigged with sensors, chemicals, and dreamers. They're trying to develop the next wave of ice control. They're mapping cloud layers like generals study topography. You watch them discuss strategy, ethics, budget, probability models. They forget, though, don't they, that ice isn't just a thing, it's a boundary. It separates wild from known, past from future, balance from imbalance. Every time we try to tame it, whether in war or in warming, we remind the earth that we've forgotten our place. You listen to the whirring of the plane. You whisper again to yourself, half asleep. Ice was never meant to be controlled. And in the distance, like thunder wrapped in frost, something ancient stirs. You're not cold anymore, not in the way you were at the start. You've grown used to the frost creeping in at the edge of your thoughts. Used to the way silence hums in ice-covered valleys. This part of your journey isn't about understanding anymore. It's about reckoning. Ice is no longer just a frozen state of water to you. It's a language, a restraint, a verdict passed by the planet when it's had enough. At the highest latitudes, where winter never lifts fully and the stars burn with icy clarity, ice becomes memory, not just of the earth, but of us. We begin with the way humans live in fear and reverence of it. From ancient winter gods that froze time, to tales of entire cities swallowed under snow. Ice has been mythology's scalpel. Even now, we retreat from it. Even now, we build machines not to embrace winter, but to survive it. In Iceland, people name their glaciers. They whisper their prayers to frozen giants that remember before memory. In Siberia, frozen lakes hold the echoes of extinct animals, human tools, and civilizations we forgot to honor. Ice is the message and the messenger. But there's another layer, a warning hidden in modern experiments. The United States, along with a handful of other governments, have not simply observed weather. They've tinkered, toyed. In the 20th century, Project Cirrus and other early cloud seeding operations tried to turn the sky into a laboratory. Ice particles were used to trigger storms. Planes flew into clouds, releasing silver iodide and dry ice into their bellies. The snow that fell wasn't always natural. It was manufactured. Geoengineering later proposed releasing sulfuric aerosols into the upper atmosphere to cool the Earth, mimicking the effects of volcanic eruptions. The goal? To fight global warming with artificial winter. But what happens when you try to imitate the tool of a god? Chaos. Mostly. Some claim that hurricanes were unintentionally worsened. Others whisper about weather weapons, secret projects that turned storms into tactical tools. There are documents, declassified footage, enough rumors to chill even the most skeptical minds. The idea of man-made ice, of playing with frost like Prometheus played with fire, carries the same consequence: punishment. Now imagine ice as a divine tool. Not divine in the polite, churchy sense, but divine in the way of vengeance, biblical, primordial, like something that predates language and waits beneath the permafrost for our hubris to reach its boiling point. The book of Job speaks of God keeping hail in treasuries, ready for the day of battle. The Norse feared Fimbulwinter, a final winter so long and deep it would bring the end of gods and men. In these stories, ice isn't passive. It's not a result, it's an intention. A reset button, pressed from the heavens. So you begin to wonder, maybe ice isn't a reaction to Earth's balance being disrupted. Maybe it is the balance. Maybe it is the last argument. Even the language of science, objective and sterile, concedes to its power. When the Greenland and Antarctic ice sheets melt, not only does sea level rise, but the spin of the planet shifts. Glaciers act as anchors. When they disappear, the Earth wobbles like a table with a broken leg. You're no longer talking about climate here. You're talking about the mechanics of the planet itself. Ice holds the world in place, and we are melting the lock. But you're tired. Tired of facts, of names, of metrics. You want to lie in the snow now and listen to the way it sings beneath your body. The crunch, the hiss, the way even breath becomes visible in its presence. There is a rhythm to all of this. Ice doesn't just fall, it claims. It measures your warmth and waits patiently for its turn to speak. There are entire species beneath glaciers that haven't seen the sun since mammoths walked across Europe. And when the ice recedes, what emerges isn't always harmless. In Alaska and Siberia, melting permafrost has exposed corpses from ancient smallpox outbreaks. Researchers, safely encased in hazmat suits, have found frozen bacteria that could revive in modern air. In 2016, a 12-year-old boy died in the Yamal Peninsula from anthrax, released from a thawed reindeer carcass. You weren't supposed to open these vaults, but here we are. Ice is not just keeping balance, it's keeping secrets. So you watch from the distance. You understand now why gods wielded winter like a sword, why shamans carved warning glyphs into glacier caves, why the earth itself saves snow as a kind of currency. Because the day it all melts is the day we cash out.